What's up, YouTube family? T.O. here, Simplistic Fishing, back at you tonight. I'm at the house, got a little boat maintenance to do, so not able to get on the lake, but still wanted to share some fishing tips with you, so I figured I'd continue on with the Bass Fishing 101 series. Tonight is episode 4. We're kind of continuing off the Texas rig technique that we talked about in the last video. So if you don't remember that or you didn't get a chance to see it, don't worry, we've got plenty of links that'll take you back to that. But tonight, we are going to talk to you a little bit about the most effective way to use that Texas rig that we talked about. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about these, which are practice lures. I know, crazy. I'm going to talk to you guys about practicing fishing at home. And then we're going to dive in and talk about those 5 baits in particular and how to use them effectively to catch bigger and larger bass. Stick around. I know I got some good stuff for you. Here we go. So tonight, to start the video, I want to talk to you about practice lures. I know you're probably crazy. You're like thinking, practice lures? Seriously? Yes, practice lures. You can buy these out on Amazon, or you can go to a sporting goods store, whatever you want to do, but definitely get you some of these. They're little weighted rubber plastic lures. Rubber or plastic lure, not sure what they are. I'll put a link out in the description for you guys so you can check these out. But get some of these, and the reason why is because when you're fishing Texas rigs, there's 2 different ways you can cast it. One, you can go out there and you can just bomb it, right? And then you can just drag it across the bottom. The other way is actually flipping, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're also going to talk about those lures too, but we're going to talk about flipping, actually getting the hand-to-hand combat with these fish and flipping into really tight areas. So let's go ahead and turn around here. We're going to swap over. We're going to go over here in the pool, and I'm going to show you how I do my flipping and how it's been really effective for me. So when we're talking Texas rigs, 99% of the time, maybe not 99, 95% of the time, you're doing hand-to-hand combat like we just talked about. And so the key is that you learn how to do this, and this is a great environment to practice. If you have a pool, maybe you don't have a pool, you can just do this in the backyard, just pick different targets. But I kind of have my pool set up here, so I got a couple different targets, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my bait. Actually, I'm just going to hold my hand out flat and put my bait even with my reel here. So you can see here, it's not going to be up way high, it's not going to be down here way down by my hip or anything like that. It's right here, it's even with it, right? In fact, I just accidentally pulled that back, so let me get it back even where I want it. Now the key is that you don't grab a hold of the bait. Okay, you grab a hold of the bait and do something like this, you're going to hook yourself really quickly. So you really want to get just right out of the gate, just get used to having this be a platform. I'm never going to grab a hold of this bait. I'm never going to add any resistance to this bait. I'm just going to be a platform here in my hand for this bait to set on. All right, then once I do that, all the other action is right here in my wrist. Now there's a lot of people that like to keep their wrists low, higher. Some people like it way up here. I like mine just about kind of chest high, and I just use my right wrist to flip that out there. And again, my left hand is just a platform. So if I flip it out there, let's say I want to go underneath that little waterfall platform, I just flip it out there. When it hits the ground, I put my finger on the spool here, and then I follow the bait down with my rod tip. Once it hits the bottom, I come back up, I reel in a little bit, I pop it twice, I reel in, and I do that again. So what I want you guys to really focus on is practicing all of those different flips, right? That was crazy. It's hard to talk and flip at the same time, apparently. So I just want you to go in your backyard and just work at flipping on different things. You know, right there, I was trying to flip in that little circle. Maybe if I come over here, I've got this blue target in front of me, right? And there's actually, looks like there's a piece of paper in the ground, in the water now, which is not good, but let's see if I can hit that piece of paper. So, right, we're gonna flip up there, see if we can hit the piece of paper. That one I was a little bit long. And then I'm just going to keep working in my backyard or in the pool or wherever it is, and I'm just going to try to hit different targets. Maybe do this, 10 or 15 minutes a day, and you'll be surprised at how good you get at fishing, because you'll be able to put lures in places that your buddies can't, and that's going to catch you those fish. Those places that those lures aren't getting to is where those fish are actually at. So get really good at pinpointing in where you want to put these lures. And by doing this in your backyard or in your pool, I'm telling you, you can get really, really good at this. You can get to where you could probably sit here and just peg that piece of paper all day long. In fact, I just got hung up on it, but you see what I mean? So there's all kinds of cool stuff you can do here. And these practice lures, they're really cheap. They don't cost you much, and they will actually catch you a lot more fish than those shiny lures you want to go out and spend all that money on. All right, so one more thing I want to talk to you guys about here before we actually talk about the lures themselves is that you have a braking system on your rod or on your reel, and it's right here. There's two different kinds of braking systems. This one's actually a magnetic braking system. This is that custom light. I really like the magnetic braking systems. I'm not going to get into that right now, but start off by using this as your first adjustment. So you want to, 10 would be really, really strong, so it's not going to allow that spool to really release very much, and then obviously 1 makes it really free. So start off maybe at a, you know, an 8 or a 9 if you're a beginner. If you're not a beginner, maybe go middle there and fine tune it that way first, and then switch over to this dial and really get it, you know, really tuned in. So once you do that for a few flips, you know, get used to it, get to where you're pretty good at it, and then crank that dial down a little bit more. Maybe instead of going from 9, now you're at 7. Then do it on 7 for a while, and then go to 6, and get to where you can get that pretty loose, because the looser you have it, the easier it's going to be to make those really long casts, those really long flips, to get into those really tight spots. So guys, get good at flipping, and you're going to be an excellent fisherman when it comes to Texas rigs. Let's move on. Let's talk about some baits. Okay guys, we talked about the casting, right? Flipping was key. Make sure you're going out and practice that. And I just want to talk to you a little bit more about these lures, because these lures have specific actions on them that I think are key that you understand. So when we're talking about the creature baits, this one, which is the baby brush hog, and then we also talked about the pit boss as well as the rage bug. Those are all going to work very similar to this. So let's go right here to the pool, and I just want to show you guys a couple things. Hopefully it picks up on the GoPro. I don't have anything underwater to show you, but I want to show you how I would work this bait. I think it's going to help you guys out a lot. You'll be surprised. I work it pretty similar to the way I work the shaky head as well. Let's do it. All right, so I'm up here at the hot tub, and I brought us up here because I really want you guys to be able to see this. In fact, I'm going to adjust this down just a hair so you can really see what's below me. And so what I want you guys to pay attention to is how this bait actually falls in the water. So I'm just going to drop it down nice and slow here. And I just want you to watch how that bait reacts in the water. See how those little tails bounce up and down? It's got really good action on it. So essentially that's how we're going to cast it out there, right? Now you can drag it. So if this is going to be the dragging motion, you can drag it like this, but look, I mean, that's pretty decent motion. The tails and stuff are wagging, but that's a lot better. That looks really cool, right? So basically, that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna switch over and I'm gonna show you guys how we catch this. All right, when it comes to casting the creature baits, all 3 of them are gonna be the same. So I'm only gonna give you one demonstration here for all 3 of our creature baits. We're talking about the creature baits. Yes, you can cast them out and just drag them. That will work. If you want to drag it to the side, that will work, but I don't feel like that's really the most effective way to use these. I think if I was going to go out and drag something around, I'd probably go out and drag a worm around a little more than I would these creature baits like this brush hog or the pit boss. The pit boss I'd definitely put on a Carolina rig and drag it around, as well as this baby brush hog. And then we've also got that rage bug. But let's talk about flipping, because that's how you're going to do most of the fishing here with this. So right here, let's pretend that we've got the waterfall there. We want to pitch underneath that waterfall, and we know that there's a fish setting up somewhere right along that ledge. So what I'm going to do is, just like we talked about earlier, I've got everything even, right? So I've got my hand as well as my reel. I'm even here. I'm going to scoot this camera back up a little bit so you can see what we're talking about here. So I'm going to cast right there into that cave. So I'm basically going to, at the end when I get done, I want my rod, the end of my rod, pointing right where I'm going to target. So I'm targeting the middle of that cave. I'm going to hold my hand out just like we talked about, because now I really got a hook in it, and I'm just going to flip it in there with my right wrist. Okay, so I'm going to flip it in there, and then as it goes in there, I'm going to lower my right wrist down and follow that bait down. So notice it just hit the ground. You guys might not be able to see that. I'm going to reel it up to where I got a little bit of tension in my line, but not very much. I still have slack. It's still dangling. And then I'm just going to pop it twice. And then I'm going to reel it in a little bit more, and I'm going to pop it twice again. And then after that, I'm going to bring it in. And I'm going to change those pops as I'm doing my flipping. So maybe some flips I flip it out there and it goes down to the bottom and I flip it really hard, like I'm really aggressive with it. And then maybe other times I don't flip it nearly as hard. But you can see just a light flip. This is 4 foot of water. A little light, you know, flipping of the wrist like that is actually bringing that bait up 3 to 4 feet. So that's a lot, okay? So the key is just flipping it out there and following it with your rod tip down till it hits the bottom. And then once it does that, you're gonna reel in a little bit and go. Now, when you're following it down, if you see that line get tight at all, because it shouldn't be getting tight, right? Because it's falling. If you see that line get tight at all, you immediately need to set the hook, reel down, and then chug away, right? Set that hook. So just again, when you're flipping, you're just flipping it out there. You're pointing at your target. You're letting it go down. As soon as it goes down, you're going to reel in the slack line, pop it a couple times, reel it in and do it again, and you're just going to hit as many targets as you can, and you want to get in the gnarliest, craziest stuff that you can even imagine. I mean, as close as you can get back there, that's going to be the best spot where that fish is going to be, right? Because that's where that shade's going to be. So that's really it when it comes to using the brush hog and using the creature baits. You really want to make sure that you're throwing those out there and that you're popping them, right? So not just dragging them, definitely drag them also overhand, kind of dragging them over the rocks and things like that. But try that popping action, and I believe that's really going to help you guys out. Let's switch over. Let's talk about that worm. All right, so we're going to step over here real quick to the hot tub and see what kind of movement this Senko has. So I'm going to try to get as close as I can here so you guys can see it, and I'm just going to drop it in the water here. So you can see it has not a lot of action, right? There's not a lot of moving parts. When you flip it up and down, there's not too much going on with it. Just not too much. So my suggestion when you're using this bait is you definitely want to drag this one, okay? This one's going to be a little bit different than just flipping it out there. So what I mean by that is, let me get a little adjustment here. See if maybe I can even get over here. So I'm going to flip over here into that deeper spot, right? And then I'm going to let it go down just like we talked about until it gets to the bottom. And then once it gets to the bottom, I'm going to reel it in just a little bit, and then I'm just going to drag it to the side, okay? So I'm going to drag it to the side, and then as I go back to the bait, I'm going to reel in it a little bit until it gets tight again, and then I'm going to drag it. And again, reel in when I move the bait, when I move the rod in, and then drag it. And then reel in, move the bait in, and drag it. You guys are going to see the bait here in a second. I can actually see it because I'm above you guys, but this thing is just really staying in contact with the bottom, and I think that's key on these Senkos and these worms, is that you just stay in contact with the bottom. So I'm not sure if you guys can see this or not. Let's see if you can see it. There I am, just dragging along the bottom. That thing's not doing much, but it's definitely a fish destroying machine. So do that with your ribbon tails and your stick baits. I think you're going to have some success. The other way to work those would be to cast it out there or flip it out there, however you want to do it. Let it go down to the bottom. Kind of follow it down. You know, you're watching your line, making sure you don't see any tension in it. Once it gets down to the bottom, then you're just going to work it more upwards, okay? So it's going to be more like this. So you're going to work it up over a rock, and then as it goes down that rock, you're going to point that rod tip back down, reel in a little bit, and you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to kind of keep working it as you come in, and you're working on every piece of cover you can feel down there, every single rock, every single stick, branch, whatever it is. You're just going to work it over. And then I don't know if you guys can see this in the camera or not, but I'm coming over the hose of this this pool thing. So basically this pool cleaner. So pretty much, let's pretend that this was a branch. I would let it sit there for a minute, maybe dangle a little bit, because I know that I'm stuck on a branch. And then when I come over it, I'm going to reel in a little bit and get to where I come over. And as soon as I come over it, I'm going to put my rod tip down. Okay, so as soon as that goes in, now my rod tip immediately goes down. And that's key, because that's usually when you're going to get that bite. Then maybe let it sit there a little bit. Now I'm over the cleaner itself. I can feel it going over, and then as soon as it comes over, I'm going to lower it back down, right? Immediately get it back down to the bottom. So guys, those kind of tips right there, I think are really going to help you. It's going to improve your Texas rigging. It's going to improve your casting. Go out, do that flipping, man. That's going to turn you in to a really good fisherman if you can figure out how to flip and pitch really effectively. It'll put you 10 steps above your buddy. Till next time, guys, I hope you catch your PB.